Sometimes people come to me not only for advice, but also for the right to speak their mind. Recently, a man came into the parish. He looked as if his world had collapsed before his eyes. Sitting down opposite me, he was silent for a long time, and then he spoke. His words were full of bitterness that had accumulated in his heart for many years. Today, I want to share his story with you. It is a story that reminds us how fragile human relationships can be. Here are his words. My name is Clarence Winston, but everyone just calls me Clark. I am 67 years old, and I have been enjoying my well-deserved retirement for 7 years now, after 35 years of service with the Palm Beach County Police Department in Florida. I live alone in a small house on the outskirts of town, in the same neighborhood where I've spent the last 30 years of my life. It's a two-story house with a porch and a small backyard where Eleanor used to grow tomatoes and roses. My wife Eleanor died 5 years ago of lung cancer. She smoked like a chimney her whole life, even though I warned her. Until the very end, she insisted that cigarettes calmed her down and that the stress of her husband's police work required some kind of release. Maybe she was right about that. We have two children, our daughter Priscilla, who is 35 and has been married to Dale Marshall for 8 years, and our son Tyrone, who is 32 and lives with his girlfriend Linda in a town an hour's drive from here and works as a truck driver. Priscilla works as a manager at an insurance company, and Dale works at a building materials warehouse. I have a decent pension, plus I've accumulated some savings over the years, about $100,000 sitting in the bank doing nothing. I live modestly but comfortably, spending mostly on groceries, utilities, and occasionally home repairs. My days pass at a steady pace. I get up at 7 in the morning out of habit, have breakfast, read the newspaper, and go to the senior citizens gym at the community center. After lunch, I usually do household chores or meet with Bucks O'Malley, my neighbor and best friend. In the evenings, I watch TV or read detective novels. It's a bit boring, of course, but after 35 years in the police force, you appreciate the peace and quiet. On this October evening, I decided to gather the whole family for dinner. I've been doing this about once a month since Eleanor passed away. The house seems too quiet without a woman's voice, and cooking for one is somehow depressing. I set the table in the dining room and took out the fine china that Eleanor had cherished so much. White porcelain with a gold rim, a wedding gift from her mother. I made roast chicken with mashed potatoes and green beans. Nothing fancy, but hearty and tasty. Eleanor always said that I was good at simple dishes, although she cooked the more sophisticated ones herself. While I was cooking, I remembered how our family dinners used to be. Eleanor bustled about in the kitchen, the children helped set the table, and the house was filled with the aroma of her signature meatloaf or lasagna. Now everything is different. The children have grown up, they have their own concerns, and I am more like an old dog barking to get attention. Tyrone was the first to arrive in his beat-up blue 1997 Ford pickup truck. The car had seen better days, but it still ran. My son knows how to fix things. He climbed out of the cab, stretching after the long drive, and I immediately noticed that he looked tired. He had dark circles under his eyes and his movements were slow. Being a truck driver isn't easy, especially when you have to drive all over the state with cargo, and the company doesn't really care about the driver's schedules. Hi, Dad. He hugged me tightly, smelling of diesel fuel and road dust. How are you? Not bored. Everything's fine, son. How are you? You look exhausted. When was the last time you had a good night's sleep? Just one trip after another. Gotta make money. He shrugged and walked into the house. Linda wants a wedding, then kids, and kids cost even more money. Don't rush it. Life is long, you'll get there. Easy to say when you're 67. Tyrone smiled, but without malice. When you're 32, it seems like time is flying by too fast. He walked into the living room, plopped down in Eleanor's favorite chair, and turned on the TV. I understood his fatigue. In my youth, I had worked myself to the bone, especially when the children were small and every dollar counted. Half an hour later, Priscilla and Dale arrived in their white Honda sedan. I watched from the kitchen window as they got out of the car and immediately sensed that something was wrong. Usually, my daughter would get out first and walk toward the house, chatting with her husband about something, while he carried a bag or flowers. Today, she moved somewhat stiffly, as if every movement caused her discomfort, and Dale walked behind her with a gloomy expression, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets. He was usually the first to hug and joke around, telling stories from work. But today he didn't even look up when I stepped onto the porch. "Dad," Priscilla hugged me, but quickly, as if she were in a hurry to pull away. She was wearing a long dark blue dress with long sleeves, even though it was quite warm for October, about 25 degrees. Usually in this kind of weather, she wore light blouses and jeans. "How are you, dear?" I asked, looking intently into her eyes. She looked away as if she was hiding something. "I'm fine, Dad. Just tired from work. Lots of customers. Lots of paperwork." "And you, Dale?" I turned to my son-in-law. "How are things at the warehouse?" Dale walked past, muttering something like a greeting, and headed straight for the small bar in the living room. "I keep some Jack Daniel's whiskey and Budweiser beer there for guests. I rarely drink myself. I buy it more out of habit." Dale usually limited himself to 1 or 2 shots throughout the evening, preferring beer, but today he poured himself a decent amount of whiskey, at least 70 grams, and drank it in one gulp, grimacing. "Dale, maybe you shouldn't start so fast," I said gently. "Eat first." "I'm a grown man," he snapped, pouring himself another. "I know how much to drink." Priscilla gave him a warning look but said nothing. Tyrone looked up from the TV and frowned. He too had noticed his son-in-law's strange behavior. The atmosphere at the table was tense, as if everyone were walking on a minefield. Tyrone tried to keep the conversation going, talking about his trips. He had recently delivered a shipment to Jacksonville, where he met an old friend from the Army. But Priscilla responded in monosyllables, and Dale remained silent, focusing on his food and drink. He had already poured himself a third drink, and his hands were shaking slightly, either from the alcohol or from anger. I began to worry seriously. "Priscilla, how's work?" I asked my daughter as I cut up the chicken. "You haven't talked about the insurance company in a while. How's your boss, Mr. Jenkins?" She looked up from her plate, and I noticed a slight shadow of anxiety in her blue eyes. When she was younger, people said she looked like her mother. "Everything's fine, Dad. Work is work. Clients, policies, paperwork. Mr. Jenkins. He's not my immediate supervisor anymore." "How come? Did they transfer you to another department?" "No, not exactly. There are changes in the company right now. All kinds of reorganization. They're cutting staff, merging departments." Dale snorted and downed his whiskey in one gulp, setting the glass loudly on the table. "Reorganization," he repeated sarcastically. "Sounds nice, but in plain English, it means people are getting fired." Priscilla glanced at him quickly, her eyes full of warning, but he didn't seem to notice or ignore it. "Dale, maybe that's enough for today," she said quietly, nodding toward the whiskey bottle. "Enough of what?" he snapped, and I heard a note of aggression in his voice that I hadn't noticed before. "I've only just started. I've had a rough day," my boss yelled at me. "The movers didn't show up for work, and now I can't even relax at home." "What does home have to do with it?" Priscilla asked quietly. "The fact that some people only think about themselves," Dale muttered, pouring himself another drink. Tyrone frowned and looked at me with a question in his eyes. I felt the tension in the room, thick enough to cut with a knife. In all 8 years of knowing Dale, I had seen him drunk at weddings, birthdays, and holidays, but never so aggressive and gloomy. Usually alcohol made him more talkative and cheerful. "How's your Linda?" I asked Tyrone, trying to steer the conversation toward a safer topic. "Still working at St. Mary's Hospital?" "Yes, in the intensive care unit. It's hard work, but she likes it. She says she wants to study medicine and go to medical school." "Smart girl," I nodded. "Aren't you thinking about getting married?" "You've been together for 3 years now." Tyrone smiled as he cut a piece of chicken. "We are, of course, but we're saving money first. Weddings are expensive, and then we'll need to buy a house and have children. We want to do everything right so we won't have any regrets later." "You're right. There's no need to rush." "Why rush?" Dale suddenly piped up, his words tinged with sarcasm. "Marriages fall apart anyway. It's better to just live together and not bother with stamps in your passport." An awkward silence ensued. Priscilla blushed and stared at her plate, as if she hoped she could sink through the floor. Tyrone stopped with his fork halfway to his mouth. I sensed that something serious was going on between the couple, but I didn't know how to delicately find out what it was. Everyone has their own path, I replied diplomatically. The main thing is that people are happy and respect each other. Respect, Dale snorted. What if there's no one to respect? Priscilla raised her head sharply. What do you mean by that? I mean that some people lie even to their own family. Dale, stop it, she hissed through clenched teeth. Stop what? Telling the truth. I decided to intervene, sensing that the situation was heating up. Maybe we should talk about something else. Dale, how's your brother doing in Tampa? He started his own business, right? Dale poured himself another whiskey, ignoring the disapproving looks. His hand was shaking noticeably. My brother's doing great. He opened a car repair shop and is making money. And I'm a fool, slaving away in a warehouse for pennies. But you have a stable job, Tyrone tried to cheer him up. And your own business is a risk. A risk, Dale agreed. But at least it's an honest risk. Not when they say one thing to your face and do another behind your back. Priscilla got up from the table. Sorry, Dad, I need to use the bathroom. She left and I heard the bathroom door slam upstairs. Dale watched her go and shook his head. You have a good daughter, Clark. She just likes to lie. Dale, maybe you shouldn't discuss family matters in front of me, I said gently. If you have problems, it's better to talk about them at home, in private. She doesn't talk at all at home. She only gives instructions and makes complaints. Tyrone frowned. Listen, Dale, you understand that it's not right to talk about your sister like that in front of her father, don't you? What's wrong with that? The truth hurts, doesn't it? I felt myself boiling over. In 35 years on the police force, I had learned to control my emotions. But when it came to family, restraint was more difficult. Dale, you've had a lot to drink. Maybe you should stop. Maybe everyone should stop telling me what to do, he snapped. Priscilla returned to the table. Her eyes were red as if she had been crying. Dad, thanks for dinner. It was delicious. But we have to go home now. But you just got here, I objected. I made your favorite apple pie. Another time, she said quickly, avoiding my gaze. Dale stood up, swayed, and grabbed the back of a chair. Yeah, time to go. Or you'll give us a lecture on family values. After dinner, Tyrone helped me clear the table, while Priscilla and Dale went out to the backyard to smoke. I haven't smoked in 20 years, quitting after I saw what cigarettes did to Eleanor, but they still had the habit. Through the kitchen window, I could see them talking quietly but clearly tensely about something. Priscilla gestured, waving her cigarette, while Dale stood with his arms crossed over his chest, shaking his head. At times, he made sudden movements with his hands and his daughter recoiled from him. Dad, is everything okay? Tyrone asked as he loaded the dishwasher. They seem strange today. Especially Dale. I noticed that too. But you know, son, it's best not to get involved in family matters unless you're asked to. People have to solve their own problems. I understand, but Prissy looks scared or something. And that long-sleeved dress in this heat. I looked at my son. Tyrone wasn't the most observant guy, but if even he had noticed, then the situation must be serious. What do you mean? I don't know. Maybe nothing. I just don't like the way Dale talks to her. And the way he drinks. I looked out the window again. Dale was waving his arms, clearly raising his voice, and his daughter took a step back from him. Then he turned abruptly and walked toward the house, leaving her alone. Priscilla stood with her arms wrapped around herself, watching him go. Should we talk to her? Tyrone suggested. Not yet. If she needs help, she'll ask for it. But inside, I felt a knot of anxiety. My police intuition told me that something was wrong. Soon they returned to the house. Priscilla was even paler than before, and Dale went straight to the bar for another drink. I decided that was enough. Dale, I think you should stop, I said firmly. You've had enough to drink. You're not my father to tell me what to do, he muttered, but he put the bottle down anyway. We really have to go, Priscilla said, not looking me in the eye. We have to get up early for work tomorrow. Of course, dear. Thank you for coming. It had been a long time since the whole family had gotten together. She hugged me goodbye, and I could feel her trembling. Her hands were cold despite the warm evening. Priscilla, if anything happens, you know you can always call me, right? Anytime, day or night. I know, Dad. Everything's fine, don't worry. We're both just tired. But I heard uncertainty in her voice, and something else. Fear? Or just exhaustion? Dale staggered toward the door. Hey, take it easy on the booze, I said to him. You still have to drive. I'll be fine, he muttered without even turning around. It's not the first time. Maybe I can give you a ride, Tyrone offered. You can pick up the car tomorrow. No thanks, Priscilla said quickly. We'll be fine. I walked them to the car, watching Dale struggle to get behind the wheel. He couldn't find his keys right away and had to rummage through his pockets. Priscilla sat down next to him, and I could see how tense she was, how tightly she pressed her lips together. I wanted to say something, to offer my help, but they had already started the engine. Dale accelerated too sharply, and the car jerked forward. Be careful, I shouted after them, but they were already gone. Tyrone stayed for another hour. We drank coffee in the kitchen and talked about his work, his plans for the future, and Linda. He said that she really wanted to go to medical school, and he was thinking about changing jobs, getting a job at a local transport company so he wouldn't have to travel so far. I want to spend more time at home, he explained. Otherwise, our relationship suffers. Linda sometimes complains that I'm always on the road. You're right. Work is work, but family's more important. Don't you regret devoting so much time to your job? I thought about it. Indeed, I missed a lot while chasing criminals and writing reports. Of course I regret it, but at the time it seemed like there was no other way. I needed money, I had to build a career. And time. Time always seems like there's plenty of it. Tyrone also noticed his sister and brother-in-law's strange behavior, but we both decided not to get involved in their affairs for now. Although he promised to call Priscilla tomorrow and find out how they were doing. Maybe they're just having a hard time at work, he suggested before leaving. Stress affects people differently. Maybe, I agreed, but my heart told me otherwise. After he left, I sat on the porch with a can of beer, thinking about the previous evening. You can always sense when something is wrong in a family. Over the years working in the police force, I've seen my share of family problems and dramas, and my intuition has rarely let me down. Domestic violence, alcoholism, infidelity, financial problems, all of these things leave their mark on people's behavior. The air was warm and humid, smelling of blooming jasmine bushes from the neighboring garden and the faint aroma of barbecue. Someone was grilling meat in their backyard. I could hear the voices of children playing in the street until dark, dogs barking, and the noise of cars on the neighboring street. The usual sounds of the evening suburbs, soothing and familiar. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, Bucks O'Malley, my neighbor and best friend for over 30 years, came out onto my porch. We served together in the police force, retired together, and now he lives across the street with his wife Dorothy. Bucks lost his left leg below the knee in a car accident 10 years ago, but he has adapted to his prosthesis and is still quite active. Good evening, Clark, he greeted me, settling into a wicker chair next to me. I saw your kids came to visit. How was the family reunion? Kind of weird, I admitted, handing him a can of beer from the refrigerator on the porch. Priscilla and Dale were acting, I don't know, like they were on pins and needles the whole evening. Bucks opened the beer and took a long sip. At 69, he was still in good shape and sharp-minded, although his gray mustache and deep wrinkles around his eyes betrayed his age. His hands were still strong. He had been a boxer in his youth. Family problems? He asked, and I heard the professional concern of a former cop in his voice. Looks like it. Dale was drinking more than usual and acting aggressive, and Prissy seemed kind of scared, in that long-sleeved dress in this heat. I see, Bucks nodded grimly. I remember when we used to break up family fights when we were young. Those were the worst calls. You never knew who was going to jump you, the husband, the wife, or both at once. Yeah, and when you see that at home, I shook my head. I hope I'm just getting myself worked up. Maybe, but your intuition has always been good. Remember the Morgan case? You said right away that something was wrong with his alibi, but everyone else believed him. I remember. We were silent, listening to the rustle of palm leaves in the evening breeze. The air was humid, promising rain tomorrow. How's your Marcus? I asked, remembering Back's son. Haven't seen him in a long time. He's fine. He works in Miami as a foreman for a construction company. The pay is good, but he rarely comes home. The last time he came was for Christmas and Rosalind. My daughter is doing well. She visits often and brings the grandchildren. She's coming this weekend and promised to bake a pie. You're lucky with your kids. I don't know, Clark. Sometimes I think we gave them too much when they were little. We were always working, making money, and didn't have enough time for them. We compensated with gifts and money. Now they're used to Dad always helping and bailing them out. The phone rang at 1:30 in the morning. I slept lightly, as I had become accustomed to during my years in the police force, when calls could come in at any time. I woke up immediately and reached for the phone on the bedside table. Hello? Dad. Priscilla's voice trembled with tears and fear. Dad, please help me. I sat up instantly, wide awake. 35 years as a cop had taught me to distinguish between different tones of voice. This wasn't just the crying of an upset woman. It was a cry for help. Priscilla, what's wrong? Where are you? At home, Dale. He hit me, Dad. He's drunk and says he's going to kill me. I locked myself in the bedroom, but he's trying to break down the door. My heart was pounding. I could hear a muffled male voice shouting something on the other end of the line, then the sound of blows against the door. Priscilla, did you call the police? No, please come. I'm scared. Hang in there, sweetheart. I'm on my way. I hung up and jumped out of bed. I pulled on my jeans and a t-shirt and grabbed my car keys. Then I stopped and looked at the top shelf of the closet, where my old service pistol, a Glock 17, lay in a locked box. I had served with it for the last 10 years before retiring. After retiring, I didn't turn it in. In Florida, it's not mandatory for police veterans. I hesitated for a second. Should I take the gun or not? On the one hand, Dale wasn't a criminal, just a drunk man who had lost control. On the other hand, drunk men can be unpredictable, especially when it comes to domestic violence. Over the years, I've seen too many cases where the situation got out of control in a matter of seconds. I took out the key, opened the drawer, and took the gun. I checked the magazine, 17 rounds plus one in the barrel. I tucked the gun into my belt and covered it with my t-shirt. Better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. I got in the car and sped across town. It was good that there was almost no traffic at that time of day. Priscilla and Dale live in a simpler neighborhood than mine, in a small one-story house they bought 3 years ago with a mortgage. The drive usually takes 20 minutes, but at night I made it in 12, speeding and running yellow lights. I pulled up to their house and immediately realized that something was seriously wrong. All the windows were lit, and screams and the sound of breaking glass came from inside. The neighbors apparently didn't want to get involved. All the windows in the neighboring houses were dark, even though there was a lot of noise. I got out of the car and walked to the front door. It was slightly ajar, and I heard Dale's voice. Come out of the bedroom, you bitch! You think you can hide from me? Then there was a loud bang on the door and a woman's scream. I pushed open the front door and went inside. The living room was a mess. The coffee table was overturned, broken beer bottles were scattered on the floor, and magazines were torn to pieces. There was a smell of alcohol and something burnt. Dale had apparently left something on the stove. Dale! I shouted loudly. The noise in the hallway stopped. A few seconds later, Dale appeared, staggering and holding onto the wall. His face was red with anger and alcohol, his eyes bloodshot. There were dark stains on his hands and t-shirt, either beer or blood. Oh, look who's here, he drawled, clearly struggling to get the words out. Daddy Hero decided to rescue his little girl. Dale, what's going on? Where's Priscilla? Where is she always? Hiding and lying, as usual. Did you hit her? He smirked and took a step toward me. I noticed that he was holding a beer bottle in his right hand, broken so that sharp edges protruded outward. So what if I did? She deserved it. She's been driving me crazy for months, and today I found out the truth. What truth? The truth that she got fired from her job. She got fired 2 weeks ago, and she didn't say a word to me. Every morning she would leave, pretending to go to work. But God knows where she was wandering. I realized that it was useless to talk to him in this state. The main thing now was to keep my daughter safe. Dale, put down the bottle and let's talk calmly. Calmly? He laughed hysterically. Why should I be calm? My wife cheated on me. I'm broke, and now my father-in-law has come to tell me what to do. He took another step toward me, waving the bottle. I automatically assumed a fighting stance. Feet shoulder-width apart, arms ready to defend. The reflexes I had developed over years of training were still there. Dale, this is the last time I'm asking you. Drop the bottle. Or what? Arrest me. You're not a cop anymore, old man. He lunged forward and swung the broken bottle. I managed to dodge and grab his wrist. Dale was younger and bigger than me, but he was drunk as a skunk, his coordination impaired. I twisted his arm, and the bottle fell to the floor with a clang. "Let me go!" he yelled and tried to hit me with his left hand. I blocked the blow and pushed him away. Dale tripped over the overturned table and fell onto the sofa. He tried to get up, but I was already standing over him. "Calm down, Dale. Don't make me do something we'll both regret. Go to hell!" He tried to get up again. Then Priscilla's voice came from the hallway. "Dad? Dad, is that you?" "Yes, dear, it's me. Come out, everything's under control." Dale heard his wife's voice and seemed to go berserk. With unexpected strength for a drunk, he pushed me away and jumped to his feet. "There she is, the liar!" he yelled, heading for the hallway. I grabbed him from behind, but he broke free and ran to the bedroom. I had to chase after him. In the hallway, Dale stopped at the bedroom door and started pounding on it with his fists. "Come out! Tell Daddy the truth! Tell him how you cheated on me!" "Dale, step away from the door," I said, approaching him. He turned around and I saw such rage in his eyes that I instinctively reached for my belt. The gun was still there. "Don't come any closer," Dale shouted. "This is my house, my wife. It's none of your business." "Your business doesn't end with beating a woman." "I didn't hit her. I just pushed her a little." The bedroom door opened slightly and I saw Priscilla's face. The left side of her face was red and swollen, and there was blood on her lip. Her eyes were tearful and full of fear. "Pris," I said quietly. Dale turned toward the door. "So, did you tell your dad how you lost your job? How you lied to me for 2 weeks?" "I wanted to say," she whispered. "When? When there's no money left?" "Dale, shut up," I said sharply. "This conversation is over. Pack your things and get out of the house." "What?" He turned to me. "Who are you to kick me out of my own house?" "Someone who won't let you lay a hand on my daughter anymore." "What if I don't leave?" I pulled out my gun and held it along my hip, not pointing it at Dale, but so he could see it. "Then I'll have to call the police, and I'll explain to them that you attacked me with a broken bottle and I had to defend myself." Dale looked at the gun, then at me. Even drunk, he realized the game was over. "Fine," he muttered. "I'm leaving." "But this isn't over." "It's over for you," I said firmly. "If I see you near Priscilla, I'll call the cops without hesitation." Dale walked past his wife, who was pressed against the wall, into the bedroom. He threw some things into a bag, grabbed his car keys, and headed for the door. "This is my house, too," he said from the doorway. "I have a right to live here." "Not today," I replied. After the door closed behind Dale, I heard his car start and drive away. Only then did I put the gun away and go to my daughter. Priscilla was standing in the bedroom doorway, hugging herself. She was wearing a nightgown and robe, barefoot. Besides her swollen cheek, I noticed several bruises on her neck and forearm. "Priscilla, sweetheart." I gently hugged her, and she burst into tears on my shoulder. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry I got you involved in this." "Hush, hush." "There's nothing to apologize for. The main thing is that you're safe." I led her into the living room, sat her down on the sofa, and brought ice wrapped in a towel from the kitchen. "Put this on your cheek. It will reduce the swelling." While she held the ice, I tidied up the living room, put the table back in its place, picked up the broken glass, and turned off the stove, where something was indeed burning. "Tell me what happened," I said, sitting down next to her. Priscilla wiped her tears and sighed heavily. "I got fired from my job yesterday, Dad. Downsizing. The director said the company's going through tough times and they had to let half of the managers go. Why didn't you tell me right away?" I was scared. Do you know how much our mortgage is? $2,000 a month, plus the car, credit cards, and Dale only makes $3,000 at the warehouse. We were barely making ends meet even when I was working. "What have you been doing these past 2 weeks?" "Looking for a job. I went to interviews every day, sent out resumes. I wanted to find something new and then tell Dale. But everywhere it's the same. Either the salary is peanuts, or they require experience that I don't have." "How did Dale find out?" "Someone told him at work today." It turns out his friend works as a security guard at our office building. He saw me being escorted out with a box of my things. Dale came home and immediately started yelling, demanding an explanation. "And he hit you?" Priscilla touched her swollen cheek. "At first he just yelled. He called me a loser, a liar. He said it was my fault we were going to lose our house. And when I tried to explain that I was looking for a job, he lost it. He said I had pushed him too far and hit me. Then again, I ran to the bedroom and locked myself in. Priscilla, it's not your fault. Losing your job is no excuse for violence. I know. But you see, Dad, he's right about the money. If I don't find a job quickly, we really will lose our house. Where will we live? I don't even have any savings." I hugged my daughter tighter. "Don't worry about that now. The main thing is that you're safe. What should I do next? Dale will be back tomorrow, and it will all happen again." "No, it won't. Tomorrow you will file for divorce and get a restraining order. He won't be able to come near you." "What about the house?" "The mortgage is in both our names. We'll figure it out. The main thing right now is your safety." We sat on the couch talking until morning. Priscilla said that her problems with Dale didn't start yesterday. Over the last 6 months, he had been drinking more and more, becoming irritable and blaming her for all his failures. He also had problems at work. His new boss was constantly picking on him and threatening to fire him. "I thought I could fix everything," she said. "Find a good job, pay off our debts, and he'll calm down. But now I realize it's not about the money." "Then what is it?" "I don't know. Maybe it's him. He's changed, Dad. He's become bitter and cruel. He wasn't like that before." By morning, she had fallen asleep on my shoulder. I gently moved her to the sofa, covered her with a blanket, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. There was almost nothing in the fridge. A little milk, some leftover Chinese food, a can of beer. Apparently, they really were short on money. Around 8 in the morning, Priscilla woke up. The swelling on her face had gone down a little, but the bruises were more noticeable. "How are you feeling?" I asked. "Everything hurts," she admitted, "but it's bearable. Maybe we should go to the doctor to check if you have a concussion." "No need. I'm fine." I made coffee, found some frozen waffles in the freezer, and heated them up in the toaster. We ate breakfast in silence. Priscilla was pensive, occasionally touching the bruises on her face. "Dad," she said suddenly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear." "Can you stay with me for a while? I'm afraid Dale will come back. I know it's inconvenient for you. You have your own life, but—" "Priscilla," I interrupted her, "you're my daughter. Of course I'll stay as long as you need me to." "Really?" Hope appeared in her eyes. "Really. I'll go home today, pack my things, and move in with you." "Thank you, Dad. I don't know what I would do without you. Everything will be fine, you'll see. The main thing is not to give up." "What about money? The mortgage, the bills?" "Don't worry, Oz, I have savings. We'll help with the mortgage until you find a job. I can't spend your money." "You can. That's what it's there for, to help the family in difficult times." Priscilla cried again, but now they were tears of relief, not fear. "You're the best father in the world," she said, hugging me. I stroked her hair and thought about the difficult times ahead. Divorce, court cases, financial problems. But the main thing was that my daughter was safe and the rest could be sorted out. "Everything will be fine, Prissy. It definitely will." On Monday after that terrible night, I went home, packed a suitcase with my things, and moved in with Priscilla. At first I thought it would be temporary, a week, 2 at most, until she recovered from the stress and found a job. But time passed, and the situation did not change. I settled into a small room that had previously served as a study. Priscilla cleared out part of the closet for me, and I put my things away. The room was cramped. There was only enough space for a bed, a desk, and a chair, but it was quite suitable for temporary living. The window overlooked the backyard where several orange trees grew. It was nice to hear the birds singing in the morning. The first few days Priscilla was depressed and frightened. The bruises on her face gradually faded, but she still flinched at loud noises and was afraid to leave the house, even to go to the store. I took her to the doctor, then to a lawyer who began filing for divorce and a restraining order against Dale. The process was delayed. The court said it could take up to a month before the order took effect. I took care of all the financial matters. The mortgage payment was $2,000 a month, plus utilities, electricity, gas, water, internet, another $500. Add to that groceries, gas, insurance, and it came to about $4,000 a month just for basic expenses. I could afford it. A police pension is quite decent, plus my savings. But I knew it couldn't go on like this forever. Dad, I feel bad that you're paying for everything, Priscilla said when I gave her money for groceries. Don't worry, dear. The main thing is that you get back on your feet as soon as possible. I'll definitely find a job and pay you back. You don't owe anyone anything. I'm your father. It's my duty to help. For the first 2 weeks, she really did look for a job. Every day she looked through ads on the internet, called recruitment agencies, and went to interviews. But there were no results. Everywhere either required experience in other fields or offered a salary half of what she had been earning before. The insurance industry is in crisis right now, she explained. Many companies are closing or cutting staff, and I have no experience in other areas. Maybe you should take some retraining courses, I suggested. That takes time. I need money now. Don't worry about the money. The main thing is to find a job you like. In the third week Tyrone arrived, he found out about the situation with his sister and immediately asked for a few days off work. He was outraged by Dale's behavior and offered to have a man-to-man talk with him, but I explained that it was better not to aggravate the situation. Dale got what he deserved, I told my son. Now let the court deal with it. Still, hitting a woman, Tyrone shook his head. It's Prissy. She wouldn't hurt a fly. We sat in the kitchen drinking coffee. Priscilla was lying in the bedroom. She said she had a headache. In 3 weeks, she had lost a lot of weight and had become pale and listless. The doctor prescribed antidepressants, but she was reluctant to take them. Do you think she'll be okay? Tyrone asked. She has to be. Time heals all wounds. Aren't you tired of all this? Living away from home, paying for everything? I shrugged. To be honest, I was a little tired. I was used to my daily routine, to peace and quiet. Here, the TV was always on. My daughter was either crying or talking on the phone with her friends. The house was smaller than mine, and there was little personal space. It's okay. I'll put up with it. Prissy needs support. You're a good father, Dad. Not everyone would do that. Come on, what else should I do? Abandon my daughter in trouble? By the end of the month, I began to notice that Priscilla had relaxed. Her job search became less active. Instead of going to interviews every day, she would spend the whole day at home watching TV series or chatting with her friends on the phone. When I asked her about work, she replied evasively, I sent my resume to a few places. I'm waiting for a response. Maybe you should call them yourself? Show some initiative? Dad, things are different now. If they're interested, they'll call back. Okay, but maybe you should expand your search. Look beyond insurance companies? I'm thinking about it. But in reality, no active steps were taken. Instead, she began to pay more attention to her appearance. She signed up for a beauty salon, bought new clothes, and began to meet with her friends more often. When I suggested that maybe she should save money while she didn't have a steady income, she took offense. Dad, I can't walk around looking like a beggar. If I look bad, who will hire me? In principle, her logic was correct, but I was concerned that her job search activity was declining while her expenses were increasing. In early November, I decided to meet with Bax. We hadn't seen each other in a long time, and I needed to talk to someone. I had a lot of thoughts that I had no one to share with. We met at a small cafe called Sunnyside near the shopping center. It was a quiet place with few customers, mostly retirees and housewives. We ordered coffee and pie and sat by the window. How are you? Bucks asked, looking at me intently. You look tired. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm living with Prissy, helping her out after her divorce. What about the guy who beat her up? Dale? He's gone. The lawyer says he left town, maybe to stay with his brother in Tampa. It's better this way. Fewer problems. How's Priscilla? Has she recovered? I stirred my coffee with a spoon, thinking about my answer. Physically, yes. The bruises are gone. She feels fine, but she's having trouble finding a job. How long has she been looking? A month. At first she was actively looking, but now she's kind of relaxed. She says she's waiting for responses from employers. Bucks nodded, sipping his coffee. I see. Are you helping her financially? Yes, I pay for the house, buy groceries, pay the bills. She has no money. How long are you going to do that? The question caught me off guard. To be honest, I hadn't really thought about it. The main thing was to help my daughter in a difficult time, and how long it would last didn't matter, until she gets back on her feet. What if she doesn't? Bucks looked at me seriously. You know, Clark, I've known you for 30 years. You're a responsible person, but sometimes you take on too much. What are you trying to say? That Priscilla is a grown woman. She's 35 years old. At her age, people should be able to solve their own problems. But she's in a difficult situation. Her husband beat her. She lost her job. That was a month ago. What's stopping her from actively looking for work now? I didn't have an answer. Indeed, what was stopping her? I'm afraid she's gotten used to her dad solving all her problems, Bucks continued. Remember how we used to work? How many cases did we see where adult children took advantage of their parents? Prissy isn't like that. Maybe not, but people are weak, Clark. If they can live off someone else without working, many will choose the easy way out. I wanted to argue, but deep down I knew Bucks was right. Over the last 2 weeks, I had also begun to have doubts. Do you think she's deliberately not looking for work? I don't know. Maybe not on purpose. Maybe she just relaxed, knowing that Dad would help. But the result is the same. She's living off you and not making much of an effort. We finished our coffee and talked about other things. The weather, the neighbors, our plans for Thanksgiving. But Bax's words kept nagging at me. I got home around 6 in the evening. When I unlocked the door, I heard a man's voice and laughter coming from the living room. I thought maybe Tyrone or one of my relatives had come over. I walked into the hall, hung up my jacket, and headed for the living room. What I saw took me by surprise. Priscilla and an unfamiliar man in his mid-30s or 40s were sitting on the sofa. On the coffee table was a half-empty bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. Some comedy was playing on TV, and they were both laughing. Priscilla was wearing a new dress that I hadn't seen before. Her hair was neatly combed, and she was wearing makeup. She looked much better than she had that morning when I left. Then she was still in her pajamas and complaining of a headache. "Oh, Dad!" she exclaimed when she saw me. "You're back already!" The man turned around, a handsome brunette with a well-groomed beard, wearing a nice shirt and jeans. He got up from the sofa and held out his hand. "Good evening. My name is Rick Morrison. It's very nice to meet you." "Clark Winston," I said, shaking his hand mechanically. "Dad, Rick works at an advertising agency," Priscilla explained. "We met at a cafe the other day when I was at a job interview nearby." "I see," I said, feeling awkward. "Rick told me about his job." It's very interesting. It turns out that advertising offers many opportunities for people with customer service experience. "Yes, the industry is growing," Rick nodded. "There's always a need for smart managers." I stood in the middle of the living room not knowing what to do. On the one hand, my daughter has the right to socialize with whomever she wants. On the other hand, I live in this house, and it felt kind of awkward. "I won't bother you," I said. "I'm going to my room." "Dad, don't go," Priscilla said quickly. "We're just chatting." No, it's fine. I have things to do." I went to my room, closed the door, and sat down on the bed. I felt like a third wheel in my own, well, not my own house, my daughter's house, where I'm temporarily living. I could still hear voices coming from the living room. They were talking about work, movies, laughing. About an hour later, I heard the front door slam. Rick must have left. A few minutes later, Priscilla knocked on my door. "Can I come in?" "Sure." She came in and sat down on a chair by the desk. She looked a little embarrassed. "Dad, I'm sorry if you felt uncomfortable. I didn't plan for Rick to stay so long." "It's okay, Prissy. You're a grown woman. You can date whoever you want. We're not dating. We just met, and he offered to help me find a job. He has a lot of connections at different companies." "I see. He's a very nice man. He told me about his work and opportunities in advertising. Maybe I should try something new." "Maybe you should." We were silent for a moment. Priscilla fiddled with the hem of her dress. "Dad, don't you think it's uncomfortable for you to live here? Maybe it's time to go home." The question came as a surprise. I looked at my daughter more closely. "Do you want me to leave?" "No," she replied quickly. "Of course not. It's just, I understand that you feel cramped in this small room. You have your own life, your own habits. Priscilla, if you want to be alone, just say so. That's not it. I just feel like I'm being selfish. You left your home, your life, to help me. And I'm still unemployed, living off you. Daughter, I told you not to worry about money. But I do worry. I'm 35 years old and I'm hiding behind my daddy's back like a little girl. I got up, walked over to her, and put my hand on her shoulder. You're going through a difficult time. It's normal to accept help from loved ones. Do you really think so? Of course. The main thing is that you don't give up and keep looking for a job. I am looking, Dad. It's true. I'm just not having any luck yet. Then there's nothing to worry about. I'll stay as long as I need to. Priscilla hugged me. Thank you, Dad. You're the best father in the world. I promise I'll find a job soon and become independent. You don't have to promise. Just do what you can. After she left, I sat in my room for a long time, thinking about what had happened. On the one hand, Priscilla's right. She is a grown woman and has a right to her own life. On the other hand, as long as she is living off me, the situation is ambiguous. Maybe Bucks is right, and I'm taking on too much. Maybe it's time to give my daughter more independence. But then why did she ask me to stay? Questions swirled in my head, but there were no answers. One thing I knew for sure, the situation was becoming more complicated than it had seemed at first. Rain began to fall outside the window, and drops ran down the glass. I lay down on the bed, closed my eyes, and tried to fall asleep. Tomorrow would be a new day, and maybe everything would become clearer. But sleep did not come. Bucks's words echoed in my head, that adult children sometimes take advantage of their parents. Was that really what was happening? 2 more weeks passed after my conversation with Bax. I tried not to think about his words, but they kept popping into my mind. Priscilla was still looking for a job, although her search efforts left much to be desired. On the other hand, her personal life had clearly improved. Rick Morrison had become a frequent guest in our home. I can't say I liked it, but I tried not to interfere. They usually met when I wasn't home. I understood this and tried to spend more time away from home, going to the gym, meeting with Bax, walking around the mall. I felt like a hotel guest trying not to bother the owners. That Tuesday, as usual, I went to the gym in the morning, then to the bank to take care of some business, and stopped by the supermarket to pick up some groceries. I mainly bought what Priscilla asked for. She made the lists, and I paid for and delivered the groceries. This time the list was quite long. Expensive cheese, shrimp, good wine, some exotic fruits. When the cashier rang up the total, it came to $230. We usually spent a maximum of $150. I got home around 3 in the afternoon. There were women's high-heeled shoes in the hallway, not Priscilla's, so she had guests. I quietly entered the house, not wanting to disturb anyone. Women's voices and laughter came from the kitchen. I headed to my room to change after the gym, but the voices were so loud that I couldn't help but listen. At first I thought Priscilla had friends over, but then I realized she was talking on the phone on speaker. Seriously, girls, I don't know what to do anymore, my daughter said, her voice tinged with annoyance. He follows me everywhere, controlling my every move. Well, just tell him straight up that you want to live alone, replied a woman's voice with a slight accent. I think it was Carla, Priscilla's friend from school. That's easy to say. How can I explain that I'm still unemployed? He pays for everything. The house, food, my medication. If I kick him out, I'll be left without any money. I froze in the hallway. Was my daughter talking about me? What about your advertising guy? Asked another female voice. Rick, what's his name? He helps you with your work. What work? Priscilla laughed. We have more fun together. He's a great guy, but it's hard to have a serious relationship with him when Daddy's hanging around the house. Why is it hard? Can you imagine bringing a man home and having your father sit there and watch you like a guard dog? Yesterday, we were going to watch a movie and drink wine, but he kept peeking into the living room and asking if we needed anything. My friends laughed. Poor thing, Carla said ironically. Maybe it's time to hint to your daddy that you're a grown woman? I did hint. I asked if he wanted to go home. But he's so noble. He says he'll stay as long as necessary, that it's his duty to help his daughter. How clingy, snorted the second friend. He's so clingy, agreed Priscilla. He sticks to me like glue. And he means well, you know? He wants to help, protect, provide. But it only makes things worse for me. What's the problem? You live for free. He buys you food, takes you to the doctor. The problem is that I have no personal life. Priscilla raised her voice. I'm 35 years old. I want to date men. I want to get my life in order. How can I do that when that old fart is always hanging around the house? The words hit me like a slap in the face. Old fart. That's what my daughter thinks of me. That's harsh about your father, said Carla, but there was no condemnation in her voice, more surprise. Why is it harsh? I'm telling the truth. He's a good man, of course, but he's intrusive. He sticks his nose in everywhere with his advice and concern. Sometimes I feel like he wants to arrange my life more than I do. Maybe you should tell him straight up that it's time to leave, suggested my second friend. Where would I get the money? I don't have a job. I have a mortgage of $2,000 a month, plus everything else. Without his help, I'll be out on the street in a month. Well then, put up with the old man, Carla laughed, or look for a job more actively. I am looking. It's just that the market is bad right now, and things are just starting to work out with Rick. He has already hinted that he really likes me, so maybe something serious will come of it. But how can I develop a relationship when my dad is always at home? Listen, maybe you could gently get rid of your dad, suggested my second friend. Not rudely, but persistently. Tell him that you need time to think about your life, that you're grateful, but you want to try living on your own. He won't understand. He'll say I'm not ready yet, that I need support. Insist. Female tears, gratitude, but firm. I want to be independent. Or find him something to do, added Carla. Let him invest in his house. Do repairs. Find a hobby. I'll try to think of something, sighed Priscilla. Otherwise, I'll soon go crazy from his overprotectiveness. I couldn't listen anymore. I quietly went to my room, closed the door, and sat down on the bed. My hands were shaking with anger and pain. All this time, I thought I was helping my daughter, supporting her in a difficult moment. But it turns out that to her, I'm an old donkey who is stuck like a bath sheet. Overprotectiveness, obsessiveness, interfering with her personal life. How many lies there were in our conversations. When I asked if I was bothering her, she assured me that she was grateful and asked me to stay. But behind my back, she complained to her friends and thought about how to gently get rid of me. I got up, took a suitcase out of the closet, and started packing my things. Slowly, methodically. Shirts, pants, socks, toiletries. In a little over a month, I had accumulated quite a few things. The voices from the kitchen continued. Now they were discussing plans for the weekend. Apparently, Priscilla was going to meet with Rick. I packed my things and zipped up the suitcase. I sat back down on the bed and waited for the phone call to end. Around 5 in the evening, the voices died down, and I heard Priscilla go into her bedroom. I picked up my suitcase, left the room, and headed for the door. In the hallway, I ran into my daughter. "Dad?" she said, surprised to see the suitcase. "Where are you going?" "Home," I replied curtly. "Home? Why? Did something happen?" I looked her in the eyes. She looked genuinely surprised, but I already knew the price of that sincerity. "Priscilla, we need to talk." "Of course, Dad. Let's go to the living room." We went into the living room. I put the suitcase by the sofa and sat down opposite my daughter. "Priscilla, I heard everything." "Heard what?" She frowned. "Your conversation with your friends. About the old donkey who sticks like glue. About how to gently get rid of me." Priscilla's face turned pale, then red. "Dad, you were eavesdropping?" "I wasn't eavesdropping. I just came home, and you were talking on speakerphone so loud that I could hear you throughout the apartment." "Dad, it's not what you think." "What is it, Prissy? Explain it to me." She lowered her head and fiddled with the hem of her dress. The girls asked how I was doing, and I complained. But I didn't say it out of spite." "The old donkey wasn't out of spite?" "No, I mean, it just slipped out. I'm grateful to you, really grateful. But sometimes I feel like what? Like you're too protective of me." I'm a grown woman, but I feel like a little girl under your wing. And that's why I'm an old donkey? Dad, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to, but you said it. And you weren't just lying to my face all this time. When I asked if I was bothering you, you asked me to stay. But you were thinking about how to get rid of me. Priscilla stood up and began pacing around the room. Okay, maybe I wasn't completely honest. But understand, I didn't want to hurt you. You do so much for me. I corrected her. I won't do it anymore. Dad, don't be angry. Let's talk calmly. What is there to talk about, Prissy? Everything is clear. I'm interfering in your personal life, imposing my concern, controlling you too much. So it's time for me to leave. Don't go, she came up to me and tried to take my hand. Let's find a compromise. What compromise? You told your friends yourself that you need to get rid of your daddy. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I stood up and picked up my suitcase. You've been living off my money for a month. I pay for your house, buy your food, pay your bills, and behind my back, you complain that I'm getting in your way. Dad, I'm looking for a job. Looking? I smirked. Last week, you spent the whole day at the beauty salon. The week before that, you went shopping with your friends. Is that looking for a job? I have to look good for interviews. What interview did you have today? Or were you just chatting with your friends about how to gently get rid of Dad? Priscilla stopped and looked at me with a kind of desperation. Dad, what do you want to hear from me? That I'm a bad daughter? That I'm ungrateful? I want to hear the truth. The truth? She raised her voice. Okay, here's the truth. Yes, it's hard for me when you're always around. Yes, I feel like I'm in a golden cage. Yes, I want to live my own life, not under your supervision. So that's how it is. Yes, that's how it is, she was almost shouting. Do you think it's easy to be a grown woman when your dad controls your every move? When he pays for everything and constantly reminds me of it? I never reminded you. Not with words. But I can see how you look when I buy something expensive. How you frown when I meet with Rick. How you hint that it's time to look for a job more actively. Because it's time. Maybe I don't want to work at an insurance company. Maybe I want to try something else. But you know better what I need. I shook my head. Priscilla, I just wanted to help. Help? She laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. You want to control me, like when I was little. Daddy knows best what his daughter needs. That's not true. It is. You never let me make my own decisions. You chose my friends in school, my major in college, then my job, and now you want to choose who I date and how I live my life. I didn't choose anyone for you. No? Do you remember how you talked me out of dating Mark in college? You said he wasn't right for me? He was a drug addict. Do you remember how you criticized my choice of first job? You said the salary was too low? Because it was too low. See? Again, you know better. Priscilla stood in front of me, red with anger. You've been making decisions for me my whole life, and then you wonder why I can't be independent. I was silent, digesting her words. Was she right? Was I really too controlling? Maybe you're right, I finally said. Maybe I really do meddle too much in your life. Then it's time to stop, Dad. No, Prissy, you're right. You're 35 years old. You're a grown woman. It's time for you to live on your own. That's not what I meant. What did you mean? That I keep paying for everything but don't express my opinion? That I be an ATM but not a father? No, of course not. Then what? Priscilla started to cry. I don't know. I'm confused, Dad. I need your help, but I also need my freedom. Why can't I have both? Because help always comes with responsibility. And you want help without responsibility? That's not fair. It is fair, Prissy. You want me to pay for your life, but not interfere in it. That's not how it works. I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. Dad, don't go, she ran after me. Let's talk about this calmly. There's nothing to talk about. You said it all yourself. I'm an old fool who's stuck to you and gets in the way of your life. That's not what I meant. It doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is what you said. I opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. Dad, what about the money? The mortgage, the bills? I turned around. What about your independence, Prissy? You're a grown woman. You can figure it out yourself. But I don't have any money. Then find a job. Any job. Or ask Rick for help. Maybe he's not as pushy as I am. Dad, please. But I was already walking to the car. I got behind the wheel, started the engine, and drove home. In the rearview mirror, I saw Priscilla standing on the porch, watching me leave. At home, everything was the same as always. Quiet, clean, my things in their places. I put my suitcase in the bedroom and sat down in my favorite chair in the living room. For the first time in a month and a half, I felt at peace. But the peace didn't last long. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Dolores Fitzpatrick, my 72-year-old neighbor, local gossip and old acquaintance, standing on the doorstep. "Clark, dear, how are you?" she asked, peering over my shoulder. "I haven't seen you in a long time. I heard you moved in with your daughter to help her." "I'm back," I replied curtly. "How come?" "What about Priscilla? Is she better?" Dolores was a nice woman, but very nosy. I usually avoided candid conversations with her, but today I wanted to share something with someone. "Come in, Dolores. Make yourself some coffee." "With pleasure, dear." We went into the kitchen, I made coffee and got some cookies. "So tell me, what happened?" Dolores sat down comfortably, ready to listen to the story. "Priscilla, she thinks I'm too protective of her, that I'm interfering with her personal life." "What are you talking about? I thought she would be grateful. You've done so much for her." "I have." And she called me an old fool in front of her friends. "No way," Dolores gasped. "She said that?" "She did." And that I was stuck to her like glue. "My God, how ungrateful. You've done everything for her. Given her money, cared for her, protected her from that scoundrel of a husband." "Apparently I cared too much." "Nonsense," Dolores exclaimed indignantly. "A father's care is never excessive. It's just that kids these days are spoiled. They think everyone owes them something, but they don't appreciate anything." We talked until late in the evening. Dolores was indignant about Priscilla's behavior, felt sorry for me, and told me similar stories about her acquaintances. I felt a little better. It's nice when people understand you. "You'll see, Clark," she said as she left. "She'll come running back to you in a week, sweet as can be. She won't last long without money." "I don't know, Dolores. Maybe she won't come back. She will, she will. Where else can she go?" After she left, I sat in silence for a long time, thinking about what had happened. It hurt to realize that my daughter saw me as a hindrance rather than a support. But maybe she was right. Maybe I really was too controlling. One thing I knew for sure, the trust between us was broken, and it would be very difficult to restore it. Outside the window, the evening wind was blowing, bending the palm trees in the neighboring garden. I lay down to sleep in my bed, in my house, but sleep was hard to come by. Thoughts of Priscilla kept me awake, how she was doing, what she would do without money, whether she would find a way out of the situation. But anger was stronger than pity. Let her figure it out herself. She's a grown woman, as she herself said. 3 days had passed since my return home. I tried to get back into my old routine, morning exercises, breakfast, reading the newspaper, going to the gym, but I couldn't find peace. My thoughts kept returning to my conversation with Priscilla, to her words that I was an old donkey and stuck to her like a bath sheet. On Thursday morning, Bucks came to see me. He looked worried, even somewhat guilty. "Clark, we need to talk," he said instead of greeting me. "Come in. Would you like some coffee?" "Yes, please." We went into the kitchen, and I put the coffee on. Buck sat down at the table and drummed his fingers on the tabletop, a sure sign that he was nervous. "What's wrong, Bucks?" "Listen, Clark. You know Dolores. She, well, she told the neighbors about your situation with Priscilla." I paused, holding the cups in my hands. "What exactly did she say?" "Everything. About how you helped your daughter, lived with her, paid for everything, and about how she called you an old fool behind your back." "I see." I put the cups on the table and poured some coffee. "So what now?" "Now the whole neighborhood knows about it. Yesterday at the store, Mrs. Johnson asked if it was true that your daughter was so ungrateful. And this morning, Harry the mailman asked if you needed any help." I sighed. Dolores really couldn't keep her mouth shut. Whatever you told her in secret, the whole neighborhood knew about it the next day. "How are you feeling?" I shrugged as I sipped my coffee. "It varies." Sometimes I'm angry with Priscilla, sometimes I feel sorry for her, and sometimes I think she's right. Maybe I really was too pushy. Clark, in the 30 years I've known you, I've never seen you impose yourself on anyone. You've always been a tactful person, but she didn't say it out of the blue. So I really did do something wrong. Or maybe she's just used to Dad solving all her problems and doesn't want to take responsibility herself. We finished our coffee and talked about other things. Buck said that his daughter Rosalind was coming over with his grandchildren for the weekend and that he needed to get the house ready. Just ordinary, everyday things that distracted us from difficult thoughts. After he left, I went to the gym. There, too, I noticed a change in the attitude of my acquaintances. Some looked at me with sympathy, others with curiosity. Old man Williams, with whom we sometimes played tennis, came up and patted me on the shoulder. "Hang in there, Clark. Kids these days are ungrateful. My own son lives in California and hasn't called in a year." At the supermarket, Mary, the cashier who has known me for 10 years, asked, "Mr. Winston, is it true that your daughter, well, treated you badly?" "Mary, don't believe all the gossip," I replied diplomatically. Of course, of course. I just feel sorry for you. You're such a good person." By the end of the week, I realized that the story had become widely known. In a small town, news spreads quickly, especially juicy news. Clark Winston, a respected former police officer, helped his daughter after her divorce, and she badmouthed him behind his back. It was the perfect topic for coffee table conversation. It annoyed me, but at the same time it reassured me. At least I didn't look like a greedy father who had abandoned his daughter in trouble. On the contrary, people sympathized with me. On Sunday, exactly 1 week after our quarrel, the doorbell rang. I was watching football on TV and wasn't expecting any visitors. I opened the door and saw Priscilla. She looked terrible. She had lost even more weight, had dark circles under her eyes, and her hair was unkempt. She was wearing old jeans and a blouse that I remembered from last year. There were traces of tears on her face. "Dad," she said quietly, "can I come in?" I stepped aside silently, letting her into the house. She walked into the living room and sat down on the edge of the sofa, like a guest who wasn't sure she was welcome. "How are you?" I asked without sitting down. "Bad, Dad." "Very bad." "What happened?" Priscilla sniffed and wiped her eyes with her sleeve. "I can't find a job. Everywhere I apply, they turn me down. Either I don't have enough experience, or the company is in crisis, or the salary is so low that it won't cover my mortgage." "What about the house?" "I'm behind on my payments. The bank has already called and threatened to start foreclosure proceedings. I have a month to pay off the debt, or they'll take the house." "How much do you need?" 4,000. 2 late payments plus a penalty." I nodded, digesting the information. "What about utilities?" "They cut off the electricity yesterday. They promised to cut off the water tomorrow if I don't pay." "What about Rick? Can't he help?" Priscilla smiled bitterly. "Rick disappeared as soon as he found out about my problems. It turns out he has a wife and 2 children of his own. He was just having fun." "I see." We were silent. Priscilla cried quietly, sobbing from time to time. I stood by the window, looking out at the street and thinking about how I felt. Of course, I felt sorry for my daughter, but the resentment was still there. "Dad," she said finally, "I came to ask for forgiveness." "For what exactly?" "For everything. For calling you an old ass. For being ungrateful. For not appreciating your help. Priscilla, you said what you thought. You don't apologize for your thoughts. But that's not what I thought. I was upset, angry at everyone. At Dale, at work, at life. And you got caught in the crossfire. You said it yourself. I've been making decisions for you your whole life. So the problem isn't just your mood." Priscilla stood up and came over to me. "Maybe you were too caring sometimes, but that's better than indifference." I realized that last week when I was all alone. "And what did you realize?" "That I don't know how to live on my own. That I've always relied on other people's help. First yours, then my husband's, then yours again. And when I was left alone, I was lost." I turned to her. "Priscilla, I'm ready to forgive you as my daughter. You're my child and I can't help but love you. But I won't help you anymore." "What?" She turned pale. "You're a grown woman of 35. It's time to learn to solve your own problems." "But Dad, I don't have any money." "They're going to evict me from my house. Then find any job." in a store, in a cafe, as a cleaner. The main thing is that it brings in money, but I won't be able to pay the mortgage with a job like that. Then sell the house and rent a smaller apartment. Many people live that way. Where will I put my things, my furniture? Sell what you don't need and put the rest in the garage. Priscilla looked at me in horror, as if I had suggested something unthinkable. Dad, but you can help. You have money. Yes, I do. But I'm not going to give it to you. Why? Because you won't learn to be independent as long as you know that Dad will bail you out. You said it yourself. I've been solving your problems for you my whole life. But this is the last time. I'll find a job and pay you back. Priscilla, you've been saying that for a month. And in that time, all you found is a lover who turned out to be married. The words sounded harsh, but they were true. Priscilla recoiled as if I had hit her. How can you say that? How else? You look for the easy way out, either through your father or through men. You don't want to work yourself. Priscilla began pacing around the room, waving her arms. I can't believe you're saying this. You're my father. It's your duty to help your children. My duty was to raise you and give you an education. I did that. Now you have to take care of yourself. What if I can't? You will. You have no other choice. So you're willing to watch me get evicted from my home? Watch me end up on the street? You won't end up on the street. At worst, you'll rent a room somewhere. Priscilla stopped and stared at me. Are you kidding me? No, I'm saying what I think. What will people say? That Clark Winston's daughter lives in a communal apartment? What will they say about Clark Winston's daughter calling her father an old ass? She blushed. Will you never forgive me for this? I will. But you need to learn a lesson. What lesson? That there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you want something, you have to pay for it. With hard work, responsibility, gratitude, Priscilla sat back down on the sofa and covered her face with her hands. I don't know how to live without help. You'll learn, like billions of other people. Dad, at least give me enough for the mortgage. Lend it to me. I'll sign a promissory note and pay you back in installments. No. Why? Because you won't pay me back. You'll find 1,000 reasons why you can't pay, and I'll be the fool who believed you again. Priscilla jumped up, her face contorted with anger. You're a cold-hearted egoist, she shouted. You have money you're not going to spend anyway, and you don't want to help your daughter. Now you're showing your true colors. Priscilla paced around the room, clenching her fists. You know what? I regret coming here. I thought you would understand and help, but you're like a stone wall. Priscilla, I've helped you many times. The last time I supported you completely for a month and a half. And how did you appreciate that? I was wrong, but no buts. You showed me how you feel about me. Now I'm showing you how I feel about you. So you don't love me? I do, but I'm not going to be your cash cow anymore. Cash cow? She laughed hysterically. You think I'm using you? Aren't you? I just need help. And you'll get it. From the government, from charities, from new acquaintances, but not from me. Dad, you can't do this to me. I can, and I am. Priscilla rushed to the door and turned around on the threshold. Fine, but remember, if I end up on the street, it will be on your conscience. She slammed the door so hard that the windows rattled. I heard the car start and drive away. I stood there in the living room, feeling devastated. It was hard to see my daughter suffering and not help her. But I understood that if I helped her now, she would never become independent. She would rely on her father's support for the rest of her life. Around 8 in the evening, Tyrone arrived. I heard the sound of his pickup truck from a distance. The engine was running rough and needed to be repaired. Hi, Dad, he said as he entered the house. He looked tired and preoccupied. Hi, son. What brings you here? Priscilla called. She said you had a fight. A fight is putting it mildly. She demanded money and I refused. Can we talk about it? Of course. Let's go to the kitchen. I'll make some coffee. We went to the kitchen and sat down at the table. Tyrone was silent, gathering his thoughts. Dad, I know Prissy was wrong. What she said about you to her friends, it's awful. I'm glad you understand, but I don't understand why you refuse to help her now. She apologized. Son, words of apology are one thing, actions are another. Today she first asked for forgiveness, and 5 minutes later she called me selfish. Maybe she was desperate. Maybe. But that's no excuse. Tyrone rubbed his forehead with his hand. Listen, Dad, what if I help her with the money? I have a little saved up. How much? 2,000. It's not enough for the whole mortgage, but it's something. Tyrone, that's your money for your wedding to Linda. Don't spend it on your sister, but she's in trouble. Trouble she brought on herself. Do you remember how she lived when I was staying with her? Restaurants, beauty salons, expensive food, and she only talked about looking for a job. Tyrone sighed. Maybe you're right. It's just hard to see my sister suffer. Suffering is sometimes useful. It teaches you to appreciate what you have. What if she can't cope? What if she really ends up homeless? She'll cope. She has no other choice. We talked late into the night. Tyrone tried to convince me to help my sister, and I explained my position. In the end, he understood my logic, although he didn't completely agree. Okay, Dad, but if things get really bad, call me. We'll figure something out together. Okay, son. After he left, I sat in my chair for a long time, thinking about what had happened. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I should have given my daughter another chance. But then I remembered her words. Old donkey, stuck like glue. And today's accusations of selfishness. No, enough is enough. It's time for Priscilla to learn to live on her own, no matter how painful that lesson may be. In the end, I told her 3 simple truths. First, you can't change the past, but you can change the future. Second, everyone has the right to their own boundaries. Third, a person's strength is manifested in the ability not only to forgive, but also to make decisions for themselves. And now I want to ask you, would you forgive or would you put an end to it? Write your opinion in the comments and tell us where you are listening to us from.